few weeks ago, I presented to you a report on the convention, a report on the committee reports for the upcoming 2021 North Carolina Republican Party State Convention. Well, about a week or two ago, I saw on the convention website that there had been a newly revised edition of the report from the Resolutions Committee. So being that I want you, the listener and viewer of this YouTube channel, I want you to have the most complete information about the 2021 state convention as possible. It is my duty to bring you now the revised report from the Resolutions Committee. But before I get into that actual report, there is a addendum memo from the chair of the Resolutions Committee, Dr. Philip Stevens, who is also the chair of the Robeson County Republican Party. It writes, the 2021 Resolutions Committee considered a record number of resolutions from across the state. A total of 38 resolutions were reviewed for consideration by committee, comprising 18 different topical categories. 15 resolutions emerged from committee after the revision process to conform with NCGOP format and standards. The following resolutions underwent scrutiny by the committee regarding statewide implications, applicability, influence, messaging, and favorability for passage on the convention floor. Rejected resolutions were dismissed for cause or revised in combination with another similar resolution. One resolution regarding closing the primaries was elected for referral to NCGOP staff for further action. The committee consists of members that both support and oppose this specific resolution. The committee recognizes this specific resolution has died in committee or failed on the convention floor during past cycles and believes, due to its controversial nature, it requires evidence-based study to make an informed decision as to its statewide implications for the party. The committee, therefore, wishes to refer this resolution to NCGOP for formal study. This fiscal year, I should say. Committee members on both sides of this issue are available to assist with methodology and oversight, hoping to gain feasibility scoring. The 15 committee-approved resolutions are submitted for consideration. Respectfully, Dr. Philip Stevens, Chairman of the Resolutions Committee. Now, again, in the previous video, I presented you 5 resolutions. I'm not going to reread the resolutions I've already read. The first resolution is the support of broadband access. I already read that in my previous video. But the second one here is a resolution opposing using critical race theory in North Carolina schools. This one, very important and relevant. I'm going to read the whole thing here. It says, whereas the NC State Board of Education adopted social studies standards in 2020 that align with critical race theory components. Whereas critical race theory is essentially a Marxist-type construct that is meant to divide Americans into groups of oppressors and victims. Whereas critical race theory focuses on the idea that skin color is the determining factor in normal social relations. Whereas the result of teaching children that they are automatically racist solely based on the color of their skin instead of their true beliefs and actions in dealing with each other is a recipe for division, resegregation, and anarchy. Whereas the wishes of parents have been overlooked in the setting of these standards. Whereas the tenets of critical race theory are in fact anti-historical. Whereas the beliefs inherent in critical race theory ideology are diametrically opposed to the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who believed that we should be valued on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And whereas an equity-based form of government advocated by these social studies standards would mean the end not only of private property, but also of individual rights, equality under the law, federalism, and freedom of speech. These will be replaced by race-based redistribution of wealth, group-based rights, active discrimination, and omnipotent bureaucratic authority. Therefore, be it resolved, the North Carolina Republican Party stands firmly opposed to the new social studies standards that implement critical race theory into our state's curriculum, because we think children should be taught to love America and each other, not the destructive ideas embodied in these standards. And resolved, the North Carolina Republican Party applauds the leadership of Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who has emphatically spoken out against these new social studies standards and has given parents a voice through his task force, Fairness and Accountability in the Classroom for Teachers and Students. And resolved, the North Carolina Republican Party strongly urges the North Carolina General Assembly to pass legislation outlawing the teaching of critical race theory in our state's schools. Okay, next resolution is a resolution of concern. The NC legislative legal stand-in regarding elections. I covered that a little bit in the changes to the party platform in the last video, so I'm not going to really read that resolution. Next resolution, very similar resolution regarding future elections. However, I will not going to read this one either, but I will give credit to contributing resolutions that are here and consolidated. Was from the Craven County Republican Party Convention, the Orange County Convention, Durham County Convention, NCGOP District 1 Convention, and NCGOP District 6 Convention. Then we have a resolution regarding the 2020 election, voter fraud, how the election was conducted, and that sort of thing. Again, those same counties and districts from the previous resolution contributed to this 2020 election resolution. And then we have a resolution rejecting the national popular vote movement and supporting the Electoral College. Again, that one, there's so much information on that topic already. I'm not gonna go into that here. Next was the resolution opposing the Equality Act and protecting women's sports. I already read that, the whole resolution, on the previous convention video. Then we have a resolution urging the North Carolina State Legislature to protect our First Amendment rights and curb big tech's unconstitutional censorship. That again is a very broad, very nationalized issue. Again, not going to repeat stuff you probably already know. Let's see. Freedom and Health Resolution, already read that in the previous video. Resolution supporting hemp farmers and producers of hemp products. I think there might have been a resolution a few years ago on this. Not sure if it passed or not, or if it just did not get heard because the convention was running along, or the and then what happens always, if the convention body does not do the business, it gets kicked to the executive committee, and then the executive committee usually and unfortunately will pass these resolutions without debate, or they'll just table them indefinitely. And I think this one probably got tabled indefinitely until this year. So let me go ahead and read this one. This is a state issue, local issue, very relevant issue. It says, whereas the North Carolina General Assembly legalized the growing of hemp and use of hemp products in 2014 to 2016 and established the North Carolina Hemp Commission, whereas the North Carolina Department of Agriculture endorsed the production of hemp as a crop for United States farmers through the sponsorship of the Industrial Hemp Pilot Program since 2014, whereas the United States Congress in the 2018 Farm Bill legalized the growing of hemp, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture issued its final rule for production of domestic hemp in March 2021, and whereas the North Carolina State University Agriculture Program has supported NC hemp farmers through research conducted at 3 field research stations since 2015, therefore be it resolved that the North Carolina Republican Party endorses the growing of hemp as a valuable crop for North Carolina farmers, particularly for small farms and minority-owned farms, and endorses the production and sale of hemp products in North Carolina. Next one is the Keep 9 Amendment to the Supreme Court in the United States Constitution. That one's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Okay. Next resolution supporting local law enforcement. Ooh boy, this is a biggie. Whereas our local law enforcement is our last line of defense, and they are willing to put their lives on the line to protect and serve our local communities. Whereas there has been a long-standing communist war on U.S. police dating back to the 1960s and using the same tactics today of riots, defamation of police, and accusation of police brutality. There remain complicit politicians echoing the same rhetoric and calls for defunding and dismantling of local police, civilian review boards, death threats, and killing of law enforcement, which escalate to a dangerous degree. Whereas the United States is the only country to retain a local police system instead of a national system. No country can become a dictatorship as long as the local citizens maintain direct responsibility and control of their local law enforcement through their duly elected officials. Whereas the U.S. military would lack the authority to seize control of our country, federalizing of all the law enforcement agencies would have the ability to seize control of our citizens, whereas federal control of local law enforcement would be used by progressive politicians to hamper or restrict the work of local police, making their work more difficult and risking legal action against local police, thus making them the criminal. And whereas never before has our country come under such dangerous threats to our law enforcement, their lives, their ability to fulfill their duty, and their total lack of respect by anarchists, politicians, and angry zealots. Therefore, be it resolved, the NCGOP supports our local law enforcement, especially when they come under attack while performing duties, and resolve that we seek to keep them independent and strongly oppose any attempts to put our local enforcement under any form of federal control or merging with any federal agencies or any North Carolina state fusion centers and or any militarization of police regardless of the circumstances. Okay. Next one, a resolution proposing an amendment to the NC Constitution allowing for the recall of the governor and council of state. That one I covered on the District 6 convention video. Next resolution, probably the best one of the bunch. Resolution thanking President Donald J. Trump. Great resolution. Already read it on the District 6 video. And finally, last, and yes, kind of least, this is a resolution of no confidence in the United Nations. Foreign policy issues and this global issues really have never been my bread and butter. But it just, It just says the United Nations was created and is controlled by a group of internationalists, communists, and socialists who do not support Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution. It talks about China a little bit, and President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the UN Arms Trade Treaty, but President Biden supports the ratification of the treaty again. And briefly mentions the the World Health Organization, and then I don't know if this was a misprint, but it says that the NCGOP supports the private ownership of firearms in accordance with the Second Amendment. That's very good idea. What does it have to do with the UN? Again, they probably just kind of, that might have been chopped off another resolution or something. But anyway, that is my amended report of the Resolutions Committee. And again, if you look around, I'm traveling on my way to Greenville right now. I'm in Raleigh, and I'll be stopping somewhere between here and Greenville tomorrow night, and then Thursday night we'll have the pregame show for you, and then Friday we'll get into the actual business sessions because the convention will get underway. So anyway, for the Conservative Pelican, I am Bobby Crawford. Good night.